Hello and welcome to Winners Talks. This is a format by the ADCE, created to actually talk with the previous winners of the ADCE Awards. I am here today with a very notable guest, Costanza Rossi. She's the creative director at Publicis in Milan. And we're here to talk about one of the big winners from 2020 ADCE Awards, which is the diesel campaign called SideBiz. Costanza, welcome and hello.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's very nice to actually have you here. I'm actually pretty excited because I actually love the campaign. So I'm going to go right into it like we have with other guests that we've had. Let's start with what the campaign is, and then we'll talk about how the campaign was born. Okay, so describe what the diesel campaign is, in your opinion, now that you actually can talk about it, now that you can actually, what we have all seen, right?
Okay, so as you may have noticed, because luckily for us, we've done many campaigns for diesel, challenging conformity has been the core of the diesel strategy. So what I mean with that is that we pick a subject that often is close to the world of fashion, and we turn it around. So in a situation in which everybody's going on, influencers, and here like they are the most valuable people and the most important, everybody should have influencers or fashion brands.
Brands can't live without them, and
exactly.
You know, if you don't have an influencer, you're dead.
We pay millions, etc., etc. Diesel says, you know what, they have a shit life. It's much better to be a follower. So we thought, and then we started thinking about influencers and, you know, the fact that they need to change 20 times a day, the fact that, you know, they are in the morning in Paris, in the afternoon in London. And so we thought, this is really like, it can be really funny to discuss all these little nuggets of, you know, give people the idea, oh, you think that they have the best life, but actually that's not true.
It's not very funny.
So the more we were digging in and the more we were finding, if we found a very fertile territory, which is the reason why we did pills. We did interviews with influencers in which they were telling us their lives and you know, like all these really funny things. And we met some pretty cool guys that were actually willing to, like, we managed to have these 5 influencers that they were willing to discuss the downsides of having this life, and it was very funny. So that's how we started. And then we thought, okay, what if we do SideBiz, which is, you know, I am as a follower selling diesel denim, and that was like the sort of, we found that the perfect link with what influencers normally do, which is they get sent an item and then they publish it on Instagram saying, here is this handbag, here is this jacket, whatever.
And so it's a very strong purpose, I think, right now in the business, to try and link fashion to e-commerce, right? And using the non-influencer, right, the actual users as e-commerce promoters, having them become the influencers is actually a very strong basis, which actually brings me to a question which is interesting to me, is, did this project start with a brief that had to do with e-commerce, or was the brief different and you actually added that to it?
The e-commerce is, I mean, the turning into eventually people buying is something that all fashion brands want to have as a final step, you know, like,
Yep.
So for us, it wasn't in that specific brief, but I think that we have always tried to do, for example, customized collection. I'm naming another campaign, which is Haute Couture, in which you could customize what you wanted to have written. So, you know, eventually you do need to turn the campaign into, you know, the profitable side of things. And so, but turning the profit to the profitable side, it means also link it correctly with the campaign that you're talking about. And so we thought, okay, this fits, like, we're not forcing it. It just is coming quite easily into it. And so, yeah.
Which is exactly why I'm asking the question, because I think it fits so easily, right? There's a brief which I would guess had to do with the general positioning that you actually have of this brand, which you actually did a fantastic job throughout the years to revolutionize in the way it's revolutionizing its communication, right? And then you have this little link, which is not little at all, in a moment in which the relevance of e-commerce is huge, right? I mean, we're talking about, the links feels very natural. It feels very, it's a shoe in, you say in English, right? You actually put your shoe inside So I think it feels very natural. And I think it's really nice that it's always evolving. The brand is always evolving. And the communication that you guys are always doing is always the same, let's say, strategic perspective, but it's always different in the way you approach it, which is actually, I think, the thing that people like about the campaigns. I mean, everybody's waiting.
For example, if you think about Diesel as well, I mean, that was not from the collection, but Diesel as well had, you know,
absolutely
the tops that were going sold out on eBay and then reselling. So, you know, it's always nice that you link it to the purchase. And Unforgettable Denim is the campaign for this year about the events that got cancelled in 2020. And so you have, you know, the event you didn't go to written at the back of your denim jeans.
Yeah,
so
the jeans,
yeah. So I mean, and it's also like there is obviously the irony that is very important, and so for us, be a follower, the Unforgettable Denim are all, you know, observation on the world and what is going on, and you know, we all have busy lives. We're going to Goa, we're going here, we're going there, and in 2020 just had us still. So it's nice to turn it back and try to see the irony even when.
And I think it's interesting because you're giving power to the brand, but you're giving power also to the people that love the brand, right? So you're making them feel part of the collection, right? They're all kind of, that's why you want to wear the Diesel campaign, right? On your chest. That's why you feel like you can specify that campaign on yourself, because you feel like being the follower campaign is actually interesting, because it's it gives power to being not leaders, but you become leaders by being a follower, which is interesting, right? It empowers you by being a follower, which is incredibly interesting to me, right? And that's what people like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know we started with be a follower, and now I'm sort of talking about all the others, because to me, the strength of the brand comes from, you know, linking all this together. It's a bit like when we were celebrating the gay pride, and basically we had Diesel had this thing that they had an outrageous number of people who defriended them. So they unfollowed them. And it was something like 37,000, something like that.
Wow.
And what we thought was, okay, let's make this also something to talk about, saying, you know, sometimes it's best to have your opinion and say that you celebrate gay pride, rather than losing people that
Absolutely.
don't share your same point of view. And that as well was a huge success. So, you know, it's also like the challenging part is very important, I think. And this is where these campaigns kind of stay then in the thinking, you know, that they don't go away.
Costanza, I'll ask you a question. Challenging, is it the client challenging you, you challenging yourself to actually have the campaign be alive? Where's the challenge in it? Is all of these things a challenge to actually make this campaign live its different iterations? Because I think it is interesting that we're talking about side biz, right? But you can talk about the previous and the post campaign. Like you can talk, they're all kind of part of the same
thread.
I
mean, the other one was the kebab collaboration. Like,
yes.
You know, it's everybody does collaborations with the Supreme and Vuitton and this and that, and you just go, okay, I do it with the kebab guy, because it was the Berlin Fashion Week, and there was a festival that was called Bread and Butter, in which these street brands are all coming together for sort of an exhibition. And so we thought, okay, who can we pick that is really like the best Berlin signature?
Like
and so we thought, okay, the kebab guy. But what I mean is, it's challenging because, of course, is every time you get a brief on the table, gets more difficult, obviously, because you need to find something different. You need to say something that you haven't said before, and so it gets more and more difficult. But at the same time, it's great because the people that receive it, the client, are also very perceptive. So, you know, it's stimulating the conversation, and you
stimulate each other, right? You're pushing, and they
I mean, don't get me wrong, there has been times in which they say, oh, this is not good enough, I don't like it, you know, go back to the drawing board.
No, it's but that's part of the relationship between an agency and its client, right? I mean, the fact that you can talk about more than one campaign is actually a huge victory on your side, which actually brings me to the point in talking about side biz. One question I have is, you talked about, you mentioned every once in a while the word difficulty. Specifically in side biz, were there any difficulties you want to talk about? Is there anything that you actually were trying to figure out? And obviously, in talking about the difficulties, you can even talk about the good things. Like, is there anything that you like to talk about how?
For example, what you could see, what is great about the e-commerce is that you get a result immediately. So you know, as soon as the side biz started, week 2, and you already see, you know, it's going well in the UK, they're doing 20% more, and so you can track it, and that's amazing. You know, it would be much harder to do it on a shop based level, but so that was great. And obviously it's then making sure that when you launch it, people get it and start, because obviously user-generated content relies a lot on how much do you spread the word, and you know, how much people can see it. So we had to make sure that this was getting out there and that people do it. But then people do anything, you know. TikTok is a great demonstration of that. Is as soon as you give people something interesting and they feel like, oh yeah, I'm an influencer too, I can sell these trousers, it's kind of quite easy, no?
But I think it's very interesting to me that you're talking about having people want to do something for you, which is interesting. They're doing it for themselves because there's ego in if you talk about TikTok, there's ego in the ingredients that make it successful, right? But there's also the fact that they have to understand it. I mean, the communication has to be so clear that they know that they can actually participate. So I think there's something that is interesting, because the content itself is very clear. It's clear that you can actually be part of it, right? And you actually bring people to be part of it through the content, because if the people don't understand that they can actually participate with the brand and you're making them participate, it would never work, right? I mean, that is an ingredient in the campaign. There's no question in this. So I mean, that is just an underlining. So is there there is a very, it looks like that Publicis has a very strong creative producing aspect to it. How difficult is it in the production side to actually create content that people understand that A, it's diesel, and B, that it's shareable or understandable or make it viewable, right?
I think.
And how difficult is this question?
I think that what is difficult is the technicalities, meaning, you do a film and that's it. But when it comes to Instagram and social media and e-commerce, you really need to be on top of it, as if like the project needs to be followed every day by somebody.
Yes.
And that's what I think it makes the difference, because if you shoot a film, then it's on air and that's it. But instead, the tracking of what you are doing is fundamental. And so I mean, I have to say, every time we do something, there is always the challenging part of the production is also something that you go, God, how do I do this? But I think that's what's interesting as well, no? Like, you're venturing into new territories, and that's what makes it good, because I mean, now Publicis is also doing it on other brands, and I think like the Spotify for Barilla, it's we certainly needed new people in the mix, like, not just producers, but also people that are more into innovation, they are more into the tech
social
side
media
of things. That's what's changed over the last years, I would say. But let me. Yes.
Go.
No, what I'm saying is that this enriches agencies, because sometimes, what we call more like a technical or innovation guy can give ideas, also creative ideas or solutions that you haven't thought about. And so this becomes a two-way thing, not just a one-way, like, I've got this, let's make it work. But it's like, oh, how about we do it this way? And so it's definitely something that has made us all thinking more openly about the possibilities.
I let you finish because I knew you would get there, because my question was about methodology, right? The question I wanted to ask you was, going back before you actually came up with the idea and the campaign and the production and all that we talked about, is there a methodology that Publicis has in the way it approaches projects? Is there a way you want to approach projects, or you have your creatives and the people that collaborate on a project on the back end, on the end that comes before you actually sell it to the client, right? In the brainstorming / conceptualizing phase that you actually use to have inspiration, to have creativity, to have things bloom the right way. Is there a way?
I mean, I think that the brainstorming still is a very classic approach in which, people just throw in ideas. But maybe then what we have changed is that we don't go to the client with something that we know that can't be done. So we check this internally with people, whether what we present is doable, because these days we come up with things that you go, hang on a minute, can we do that?
I don't know if we can do that.
Exactly. So we wanna, we have become a bit more responsible in this, that it's not just about creativity and showing off how good you are, it's also about show me something that we can actually make. So the brainstorm part, yes, but then yes, we are soon put together with other figures that certainly help us in sharpening things and make it also more quick in the process of production, because often otherwise we waste too much time finding out how can we do that, and then we just need to we needed to be quicker in that. And so
I think it seems like it. I mean, for what I know with your way of working, is that making the chain shorter gives you a lot of information, right? If you disintermediate a little bit more, like if you make the chain a little bit shorter with less links, then you might have information that comes at a stage in which you usually would not have it, and that would actually help the way you sell it, the way you produce it, the way you put it together, the talent that you bring on board. It grows quicker. Maybe it grows better is probably the better word for it. So
yeah, I think it's also coming from the client, because often when you put ideas on the table, it's also how are clients willing to accept certain things and put themselves in uncomfortable territories. And I think this is what needs to happen more and more, that trying to see your product, not trying to protect your product too much, but try and shape it a bit more according to the ideas, and don't constrain yourself just to the limitations. And I think
and that's very clear to me. I mean, it's very clear in the campaign and the way you've evolved the diesel work. And I mean, obviously, SideBiz is a good example of a lot of different competencies within the same project, a lot of different also ramifications of the same project that starts from that could start from a banal film, and then it goes into a whole world of different content or different projects or different aspects of it that will actually have it grow and bubble up, because it was a very bubbly campaign when it came out. Everybody was like, oh my God, I can actually be somebody that will I can show myself, I can become an influencer, I can become famous using a brand that is actually amazingly important in the world of fashion and in that type of fashion, right, with those people. So it's very interesting to me. We have gotten, and you might be happy for this, but we have gotten to the last question that I always ask during these chats, which is, we have a lot of youngsters listening to these talks, right? What is a tip that you would give to somebody that is starting in this business? Would you give somebody the tip to start in this business, first of all? And what would be the tip to give somebody that is out of school, starting this business, that wants to continue in this business in the best way possible, doing the work that then we see in the ADCE awards that wins the awards? Good question, isn't it?
I think this is a very interesting moment to go into the industry, because there are a lot of changes and a lot of opportunities. Of course, one has to look also at international, what is going on in Europe, what is going on in the US. But I think it's, if I may say, I would think outside the usual TV commercial and the usual print campaign, because ideas can really spread in multiple channels these days, and that's what's exciting. And so if I look at a portfolio, I think I look at ideas that are just going offline and online, and everything in between, and that's what's interesting. And like you said, e-commerce is definitely a very important part of what we are doing.
Yes. And I always say that there's a lot more places where people see things, a lot more places where people see brands, right? And also the flow of where the jobs come from and where the ideas are born is so completely dismembered today that it's actually very interesting to me that a young person can end up in places that are not the same places that you would end up in just 5 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
Content is also incredibly important nowadays. You can pitch something to Netflix, a documentary. You can have a brand have a documentary and find that interesting. There is a lot of that going on, and so
it's very interesting.
It's really quite, and you can make products out of other products. So I think that's what's exciting, and that's what's using again the word challenging. But yes, I would definitely go into advertising in 2021.
That's good. I like that. I like a good way. That's a good way to end this. Costanza, I can't really thank you enough for this. I can't congratulate you enough for this, because I actually love the campaign. So continue, and hopefully, and maybe we're going to see each other here next year, right?
Thank you very much. Hopefully.
Thank you, Costanza.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Speak soon. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.